Welcome back. We're going to do Network Plus again. Some more Network Plus practice questions. The third set in our series. I hope you've enjoyed them so far. We're going to go through, and just like before, we're going to ask the question. We're going to go through and then answer the question and figure out why the answer is the answer, the most appropriate way to answer it, and what you could probably do to help you study for this exam. That's our goal here. Our goal is to not only pass the Network Plus exam, but pass it with flying colors. As we go through this. And I found that a lot of people, they take all these practice exams and they just rush through them and they get one wrong and they don't understand why they got it wrong. They go through and they get frustrated and they just retake it. Remember, the definition of insanity is bashing your head against the wall repeatedly and doing it all over again. If it's not working, then that's not working, right? It's not enough just to answer the questions and then hope you get it right. You should be walking into your exam with the idea that you are going to pass it. You should have a 90% or higher on your practice exams on a continuous basis. And then when it's time to take that exam, you walk into that test center, you hold your head up high, you already know you're going to pass it. The exam is nothing than a formality as you go through. However, if you do fail, that's okay. It's okay. We all have failures in our life. Trust me, I have a lot in my background, but we learn from our failures. And if we can learn from our failures, then they turn those into successes. All right, enough of my rambling on. Let's jump into these questions. All right, question number 1. Which of the following commands displays the current routing table on a Windows machine? Which of the following commands displays the current routing table on a Windows machine? This is typical of what I would expect to see on Network Plus exam. You'll notice that we've got a basic question and then 4 multiple choice questions, or answers, I should say, which provide us little to no detail of what's going on. So you almost have to know what you're looking at when it comes to this type of question. Well, what do you think? Which of the following commands displays the current routing table on a Windows machine? If for some reason I'm going too fast for you, you can go ahead and hit that pause on that video while you look at this. I do want to remind you, however, we only want to spend about 30 to 45 seconds looking at the question, looking at the answers. We want to reread the question and make sure we understand what is the question asking of us. Make sure you're not reading the question and answering something else. You'd be surprised how many people do that. And then we want to answer it. If we have no idea what the answer is, if you're looking into these commands and you're going, I have no clue, but I know it's not, this answer or this answer, then do a process of elimination. Take your best guess. Flag that answer on the top right-hand side and move on. One of the worst things that you can do is stay there befuddled on a question for longer than a minute. No more than a minute. That's how long we want to spend on these questions. We really only want to spend 30 to 45 seconds per question. All right, so let's answer this one. Which of the following commands displays the current routing table on a Windows machine? Let's get rid of the easy ones. We know it's not ipconfig. We know that we're not looking at the Internet Protocol and the configuration for it. So this would give us the IP address. It would give us the gateway address. It would give us the broadcast address, I should say. Definitely not that. Definitely not going to be ipconfig. Tracert, letter B, not going to be tracert. Tracert would do tracert or traceroute, as most people call it. This would send us a command, say we wanted to go to Amazon.com. We could talk to Amazon.com, and then from Amazon, it would send an ICMP back to our home machine from every router it hit along the way. And so we would have a route in which the traffic was taking. Anything that was not going to provide us with an ICMP request back would show up as a *** or something similar to that. But definitely not traceroute, definitely not tracert. That leaves netstat.r, -r, tac-r, switch-r, whatever you want to call it with an R, and route. Now, most of you are probably looking at that D and thinking to yourself, route sounds right. However, it's missing something. It's missing something like print on top of it. That means it must be netstat-r or tac-r. That netstat is going to give us our routing table on a Windows machine, on a Linux machine. It does it on both, and it's going to provide that for us. So the right answer is going to be A, netstat-r or tac-r, depending on where you come from. And that would be the correct answer for that. If we had route print, that would be another answer. We could do route and then space print, and that would give us the routing table as well. But route by itself, it doesn't have the extension. That's not going to do it for us. So we have to have the full command. So be aware of that. That's one of those games that CompTIA likes to play to fool with you. They'll give you both, and you'll be like looking at this and looking at it going, both of these commands do it. No, only one right answer. All right, moving on. Let's move on to question number 2. What type of record is used in DNS to map a domain name to an IP address? What do you think? What type of record is used? An MX record, an A record, a CNAME record, or a PTR record? What do you think? Well, let's go ahead and answer this. If you're not ready, you can always pause that video. Let's kind of break this down. Now, this one's actually, I would consider this to be a hard question for Network Plus. I really would. I consider this to be a hard one, just because this is something you almost have to know. However, let's break it down. Let's start at the very bottom, PTR record or pointer record. A pointer record is used to reverse DNS lookups, like mapping an IP address to a domain name. This is the opposite of a different type of record, which we'll get into in a minute. PTR record, definitely a pointer record, not going to be correct. Then we have CNAME record, a canonical name record. This record maps an alias name to the true canonical name. I cannot say that word today. That is not what we're looking for. Then we have mail exchange record or MX record. That would be A. Definitely not a mail exchange. We're looking DNS to map a domain name to an IP address. That would be the A record, which is the opposite of the PTR record. And the A record maps a domain name to an IPv4 address. I hope that answers your question. The answer is going to be A. I hope it makes sense. There's really no great way to identify this, right? There's no great way to go, wait a second, how would I know this? Well, remember, A is address, A for address, right? C for canonical, PTR for pointer, and MX for mail exchange. Usually when you see MX on a record, it's going to be mail exchange, or X would be normally be exchange. They like to do it like that. But in this case, it's going to be the A record. B is going to be our correct answer. This one I would consider hard. If you got this one wrong, don't be too flustered with yourself, because this one was a difficult one. We don't normally go with this type of records or talk about this that often in any type of job, right? So if you're in networking and you're looking at this and going, I have no idea, don't beat yourself too badly, all right? All right, let's look at some logging. What does the IP, or excuse me, what does the following output indicate? I'll let you read that yourself. There's no reason for me to provide that to you. I'm sure you're more than capable of reading. So we'll let you read that point there for you. What do you think? What does this tell us? All right. If you haven't, if you need more time, I'd recommend you pause that video. Let's go ahead and walk ourselves through this, shall we? Let's go through this, all right? The ping command failed to reach 8.8.8.8. Well, no, it didn't. We're getting a response back. We can see that from the time, right? So if you look, we're pinging 8.8.8. We see 56 bytes right there. We can see the 68 bytes from 8888. This is the response we're getting from it. IPCMP sequence number 0. Time to live 54. Time is 10.1 seconds. This, or milliseconds, I should say. This is a response back from the server, so it cannot be a failure because we're getting a response. So it can't be that. Let's drop down to D. The network connection is unstable. Well, it's not unstable because we're seeing from this one 10.1 milliseconds to this one 10.2 milliseconds, and it came directly after one after another. So we saw sequence 0 to sequence 1. Now, if we saw sequence 0, and let's say that sequence 1 failed to show up, but then we saw sequence 2 show up, that would be indicative of an unstable network connection, but we're not seeing that. We're not seeing that. So that leaves us B and C. Well, B, the ping command successfully reached 8.8.8.8 with low latency, which it did, or the DNS server is down. Well, we don't see a DNS server being down. It's not down. That would be the same as the ping command failed to reach 8.8, and it's not down. So A and C are almost saying the exact same thing in this case, which means the ping command successfully reached it with low latency. That's going to be our answer, because this is a normal traffic pattern. This is a normal ping that we would expect to see if you come in and you do a ping from your Windows terminal or from your Linux terminal. This is normal. Nothing wrong with it. And low latency is actually a good thing. And so good connection from this one. That would be our answer, would be B. I hope that you found that to be insightful as we walk through that. All right, let's tackle the next one. Given the following traceroute output, What does the presence of multiple asterisks indicate? I feel like I already gave this answer away in our discussion. I feel like I already did that, but that's okay. Well, I'll give you guys a second to read through it. Maybe you forgot. Maybe you weren't paying attention. What do you think? What do you think? I'm going to fix the slides next time, so I promise. We'll get all the commands on one line so that you can read it easier. My apologies for that. Or at least we'll put a break in between. All right, because I feel like this one's a difficult one to read because of the way I have it set up. That's okay. All right, let's answer this one. If you need more time, go ahead and press that pause button. But let's answer this one. Given the following trace route output, what does the presence of multiple asterisks indicate? Well, if we're reading this, we can see number one, our router local at 192.168.1.1. That's the IP address. We hit that at 1.123 milliseconds, where we received a response at 0.987 milliseconds right there. Right, so we're good to go on that one. Then we see the triple asterisks, and then we go to example.com. It gives us the IP address. It gives us the milliseconds and all that. So what does those asterisks mean? The destination is unreachable. Maybe that's a decent answer. I'm going to hold that one off. There's a problem with the local router. Well, there's not a problem with the local router. We can see the local router right here, and it's providing us a response. It's providing us an ICMP. And we're seeing the millisecond, so definitely not a problem with the local router. We can see D, the trace route command failed completely. If it failed completely, we would see nothing coming back. We would see 0. It would be stuck at 1. There would be no 2. There would be no 3 if it failed completely. And in this case, we can obviously see a 1, a 2, and then a 3. So it didn't fail completely. I think that leaves us, if I remember correctly, A, destination, oh, no. Yeah, destination is unreached. No, we already answered that one. We already did that one. I thought we did. Maybe I feel like I got off somewhere along the foot, but that's okay. The answer is going to be one of the intermediate routers did not respond. I feel like I missed something in my explanation. I apologize. But the answer is going to be C. One of the intermediate routers did not respond. When it doesn't respond, usually it has it responds, or someone configured it to not respond to ICMP requests. It does not send back an ICMP request. And we'll see this a lot of times in modern networking because as a security person, I don't want my router to tell you what my IP address is. I don't want you to know that information. And the best way to do that is just turn off ICMP. Excuse me. And so one of the routers did not respond. That is the correct answer. And we know that because it went from 1, it didn't respond on 2, and then it went to 3. And so that would be the correct answer. It is C. One of the intermediate routers did not respond. And you know, that's typical. If you ever do a trace route or a trace cert, you'll see that on there quite often, actually. All right, let's move on to the next question. Which protocol is used to automate the assignment of IP addresses in a network? Kind of an easy one. Kind of an easy one, I think. But a lot of acronyms, which I find that brand new students have a problem with acronyms. I got to tell you, one of the best things that you can do when you're studying for your exam is to memorize the acronyms. The best way to do that is, for instance, if you see an acronym like TCP, Transport Control Protocol, right, to say it and then say the acronyms directly after it whenever you're talking to somebody. So if you're in a class or if you're talking to people that are in IT or you're talking to somebody else, you're going to be like, yeah, I learned all about Transport Control Protocol, TCP. And they'll be like, why are you saying the acronym right after it? Because you're learning it, because you're memorizing it. And that's how we memorize it, is by saying it often and saying it out loud. If you can do that, you'll be fine. You'll start to memorize these. You need to do it quite often, though. All right, let's answer this one. Which of the protocol is used to automate the assignment of IP addresses in a network? Well, let's start at D, ICMP. I feel like we already did 2 questions like that, so we know it's not ICMP. That is ping. That is traceroute. That is not assigning IP addresses. Then we drop down to A, DNS, domain name systems. Domain name systems provide IP addresses, or like a telephone book for IP addresses to a website or a web domain. So something like Amazon.com, we don't have to memorize the IP address. We just have to memorize Amazon.com. And the DNS says, yeah, I know where Amazon.com is. It's this IP address. Think of the yellow pages if you're old like me. I don't know what the newest generation uses for a phone book. Google, I guess? I have no idea. But that's how I would relate it. It's a phone book for DNS. It's a phone book for domain names to IP addresses. That leaves us with DHCP and ARP. Both of these are protocols that are used inside of our internal network, and both of them have to do with IP addresses. However, C, Address Resolution Protocol, is utilized only in the network to identify where items are or to affiliate MAC addresses with IP addresses. And DHCP, Dynamic Host Control Protocol, or I should say configuration protocol, excuse me, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, is utilized to identify and assign hosts, or configures hosts to an IP address. Configuration of host IPs, or host configuration. If you remember host configuration, you can remember the answer to this question. The answer is going to be B, DHCP. DHCP, and there you have it. All right, that was our last question for tonight. I hope you found this educational. I hope this was helpful. If it wasn't, if you had a problem, believe me, it was somebody else, right? It wasn't me. If you found it educational, if you found it to be worth your time, I would really appreciate it if you could hit that like, subscribe, and that little bell icon, and we'll continue to push out more content, more practice exams as we go through, and more other content, right? I don't just want to do practice exams. I really like the hands-on stuff. I really like the hands-on stuff. But I feel like first time people getting into IT, they're trying to get their certificates. This is a lacking field, I feel like. I feel like we can find practice exams, but no one actually takes the time to explain it. And I don't want to say no one. Very rarely does somebody take the time to explain it. So that's what our goal is here today. If you found this educational, I would appreciate that like. Anyway, my name is Dr. K. We will see you next time on the channel. Thank you very much. Have a good night.